Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm from Ukraine, and if you're new to my channel and you support Ukraine, please subscribe. I have started vlogging at the very beginning of brutal Russian invasion, and I'm convinced that together on my channel and on all global media, soon we will witness Ukrainian victory. And on the way to this victory, I'm always glad to update you with the things that we Ukrainians consider important. And of course, I'm always glad to answer your questions and clarify some aspects of our history, culture, language, or whatever interests you, so feel free to leave them in the comments. And today I want to speak about the concept that does not exist, an oxymoron, and that is Russian diplomacy. I can think about Russian aggression, Russian alcoholism, Russian brutality, Russian misery, Russian terrorism, but I cannot think about Russian diplomacy. Because diplomacy is the art of negotiation, mutual respect, desire to learn something about each other, and these are things totally absent from Russian national character. And if you want the illustration, concentrated illustration of Russian diplomacy, that is Lavrov and the things he say. When he names white, black, black, white, denies direct, open aggression towards Ukraine and tries to manipulate every argument that goes against their vision of the world and the way they want to reconstruct it. What made me think once again about this non-existent Russian diplomacy? The news that I have read in our media, and these are actually good news, because Germany, our ally, in Bundestag decided to close the majority of consulates in Russia. And in my head, all the democratic countries have long ago closed their consulate and embassies in Russia. I realize that it is not true, but I think that would be good. And let me explain why. Well, first of all, what Russia does to Ukraine and the rest of the world has one name: terrorism. It attacked us brutally, breaking all international laws and demonstrating disrespect to warnings and requests from other governments and institutions in February 2022. For a year and 4 months, they destroy our infrastructure, bomb our hospitals, schools, kill our children, civilians. They terrorize the world with nuclear weapons. They threaten they can blow up an atomic power station, or they can target populous cities in different parts of the world. And many governments, many institutions have already agreed that Russia is a terrorist state. And this is correct, because if we sum it all up, genocide, nuclear threats, and destruction and mass murders. That's how it looks at the moment. Putin's regime makes Russia isolated. There are sanctions, there are limitations to the travels of Russians, and how can we develop diplomatic connections with them? Some will say that consulates and embassies exist to look for negotiations, possibilities to decide something. But what can you decide with Hitler? Nothing. So nothing you can decide with Putin too. At present, he demonstrated that he does not follow any rules that are not his. So he is non-negotiable, if it's possible to say so. But apart from that, even before the start of Russian war in Ukraine, Russian embassies and Russian consulates functioned as centers of Russian FSB agents, spies, and various criminals and oligarchs that are hiding from persecution using diplomatic immunity. Russian diplomatic institutions do not work as Russian diplomatic institutions. In the majority of cases, they have various special FSB missions, and these missions are not good for the health of your societies, same as for the health of Ukraine. They were trying to demilitarize us, to put various pro-Russian figures, to develop networks of spies, to fraud, to bribe, and so on. these are the similar things they do in your countries. And if you think about spy scandals, poisonings, frauds, and bribes, in the majority of cases, you will find Russian trace. And many of the problems that you have in your countries, especially those alien, unusual for your society, are funded, are inspired by Russian agents. They are very careful to look for problems, and we all have problems. All countries have problems, and then to try to make these problems bigger, to manipulate, to confront societies. They are not working inside their own country to make it stronger, better, richer. They like spreading misery, Ruski mir, problems, hatred, intolerance, negative attitudes toward democratic values in your countries using networks of agents. And these people come from or supported or funded or can spend some time, hide, I don't know, connect in Russian embassies and consulates. So when these consulates or embassies are closed, it is win-win situation. First, you isolate Russia and support Ukraine. Second, you save your societies from toxic Russian propaganda and toxic Russian actions that they love to do in different societies. Of course, at the beginning of this war, many of our allies reacted quickly, and the number of these Russian diplomatic missions in European countries, in American countries, and in different corners of the world shortened seriously. But they are still present. When I think about a terrorist country that Russia is today, with its dictator Putin, I believe that one or two offices for the European Union and one or two offices for the North America, for example, is more than enough. When the situation changes and Russian population turns into Russian society after decades of hard work, Russian territory is reshaped and stops being empire but becomes a democratic country, or better say, many democratic countries, then their offices, cultural centers, embassies, consulates, missions can reopen. But at this moment, they are using every opportunity to spoil this global well-being, and their diplomats are actually agents. Can you give me a name of one Russian diplomat that tries to really work it out, that tries to stop Putin from what he does, that speaks about Russia in a different light, that tries to develop a separate vision? No, diplomats are closely connected to the political regime they represent. Political regime of Putin is dictatorship, authoritarianism, and hatred towards the world, terrorism. So do we need these offices of terrorism all over the planet? I guess no. What made me angry is that this decision of Bundestag came after Russian decision to close German consulates and cut missions in Russia, and it was just like an answer that came from Germany. And I think it should be vice versa. When Russia demonstrated its face, and this is the face of true state terrorism, well, it's time to close any platform that they can use as their voice. But anyway, it's good that this process continues and that more and more countries support us in our fight against Russian authoritarianism, imperialism, and terrorism. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons, but most importantly, thank you that you support my country, Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!